What midlife anxiety actually is, who it hits, and why the standard explanation is wrong. Exactly! Hello, I am the part of you that has been trying to get your attention, not with the emails, not with the to-do list, with the feeling. That specific, uncomfortable, can't name it feeling that has been sitting in your chest since when exactly? Since 40, 42, earlier? I am the architecture of your changing brain, and I have things to tell you that are going to surprise you. Some of them are uncomfortable. One of them is going to change how you understand the last several years of your life. And one of them, the last one, is the one nobody tells women in midlife. So let's begin.
The legal area, the area where the law, you know what I mean. I know this word. I teach this subject. Jurisdictions. There it is. Sorry. Late night this.
Erickson's seventh stage, generativity versus stagnation, describes the midlife adult's fundamental question: am I contributing or am I merely existing? The adult who cannot find purpose in this stage frequently experiences what we call a crisis of meaning. Yes, I know.
I won every award my industry gave out. I was in Forbes' career at 38. I built 2 businesses from scratch. I know how to work. I know how to achieve. What I don't know, genuinely, at 47, cannot answer, is what any of it was for. And that question, it arrived one Tuesday morning with no warning, and it hasn't left.
My therapist says I'm experiencing ambivalent achievement. I said, is that a real thing? She said, it is now. I said, well, that's brilliant. My whole life is a condition that doesn't have a proper name yet.
I went to my doctor. I said, I have no acute symptoms. My health markers are good. My business is running. My relationships are stable, but I feel hollowed and left the shell looking exactly the same. My doctor yengied way myself. I had read that phrase 1,000 times. I hated it 1,000 times. And then one morning, I had read that phrase 1,000 times. 2 was being decommissioned, and the new one hadn't arrived yet. The anxiety is the gap between them.
What Jin was describing has a clinical term that almost nobody uses in general conversation: identity dissolution. It's documented in the developmental psychology literature as a feature, not a failure, of midlife transitions. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain most involved in self-concept, goes through a restructuring in midlife. Neural connections that have been operating on autopilot since your 20s, who you are, what you're for, how you present yourself to the world, these connections are being reviewed and partially rerouted. The anxiety of midlife is not random. It is the specific discomfort of existing in a transition between an identity that no longer fits and one that hasn't fully formed. It is like being between chapters. The last chapter ended. The new one hasn't started. The blank page is real, and it is supposed to be there. Can I just put on the table that 42 feels very young to be having an existential crisis? I thought this was a 50 thing. I thought I had time to be fine for at least another 8 years before I had to deal with whatever this is. There's a study from Warwick University, economist Andrew Oswald, that tracked happiness across the lifespan. They found the lowest point of well-being sits, on average, at age 47.2. 47.2? They got that specific. So there's a nadir. There's an actual low point, and we're all either at it or heading toward it. Yes. Except, and this is the part that changes everything, a 2025 global study of 46 countries found that this nadir is disappearing. For the first time in recorded happiness research, the U-curve's bottom is flattening for women in their 40s. Because women are arriving at midlife with significantly better self-awareness, stronger community network, more willingness to ask for help than previous generations. The midlife crisis, as if their predictable universal experience, is statistically ending. So the crisis is ending and nobody told us? That is extremely annoying. Nobody told us. Yes, it is very annoying.
I need to tell you something about your brain that your doctor, your employer, and your culture have systematically failed to communicate. Are you ready? Your brain does not peak at 25. The thing that peaks at 25 is called fluid intelligence, raw processing speed, the ability to solve novel problems quickly. It is also not the most important thing your brain does. What your brain is actually building from your 30s onward and peaking in most humans between the ages of 55 and 60 is something the research calls a composite peak of functioning.
It includes crystallized intelligence, all accumulated knowledge and pattern recognition. Emotional intelligence, the ability to read people, navigate complexity, regulate response. Financial literacy, moral reasoning, resistance to cognitive bias, and something called sunk cost resistance, the ability to let go of things that aren't working, which peaks after 50. Together, these form a kind of wisdom that youth physically cannot have, because it requires decades to build. Your processing speed flickered, which is normal from the mid-30s. But what was building simultaneously, and what your brain is doing right now in this conversation, this is something that the 25-year-old you could not have done. You are building pattern recognition, contextual judgment, and emotional complexity that require decades of input. It is also the least important thing happening in your brain. A study from the Boston Attention and Learning Laboratory tested sustained attention, the ability to stay focused on one task over time, across 10,400 adults. The finding, sustained attention peaks in the mid-40s, not the mid-20s. Your ability to stay present on a complex task, to not mind wander, to maintain deep focus, is better now than it was when you were 23.
I left my corporate job because I woke up one morning and couldn't make myself get on the train. Not wouldn't. Couldn't. My body refused. I had been thinking about leaving for 8 years, telling myself, after this project, after this promotion, after this milestone. I had sunk 17 years into that career. And the thought of walking away from all of it. My husband thought I was having a mental breakdown. My mother thought I'd lost my mind. I thought maybe they were right. I hadn't lost my mind. I had found it.
What Nadia describes is documented in brain imaging research. The midlife brain develops a specific extraordinary capacity called regret regulation. A 2012 neuroscience study showing remarkable. Older adults and younger adults respond to regret differently in brain scans. When younger adults realize they've missed an opportunity, the brain lights up with distress. When older adults, the brain has this neural mechanism for releasing past missed chances. Specifically, older adults are twice as likely to escape the sunk cost fallacy.
17 years in a career that stopped working, for me. Not for other people. For me. And the midlife moment, the body refusing the train, that wasn't weakness. Regret regulation system finally completing its build. It had been waiting for me to listen for years. I finally had the neural architecture to hear it.
I've been in a marriage that needed reassessing for 6 years. I know this. I have known this. I am 51 years old and I am still performing the sunk cost fallacy in my own life, knowing exactly what it is, unable to stop doing it. The research says it gets easier. The letting go.
So when I felt like I was dissolving, when the career identity and the role identity and the good at everything identity started not holding together anymore, your imaginal cells were activating. The anxiety was your old identity's immune response to the new one emerging. The new one was always there. I was always going to become this. I just didn't know it yet.
There is a word used in developmental psychology for what happens to identity in midlife. It is a word that will feel familiar, because you have seen it before. The word is metamorphosis. The caterpillar inside a chrysalis does not slowly transform into a butterfly. This is the myth. What actually happens, in biology, literally, is that the caterpillar's body partially liquefies its own structure in order to reform. Inside the chrysalis, for a period, what exists is not a caterpillar. It is not yet a butterfly. It is. Can I tell you the single most common mistake women make when they hit midlife reinvention? They try to solve an identity question with a career answer. They change the job. They don't change the question. 18 months, they're in the same crisis, wearing a different costume. I was about to start a business. Starting a business to escape the question is just relocating the crisis. The question to ask is, am I moving towards something? Specifically, towards something that aligns with my values as they are now, not as they were at 28.
Or am I moving away from the discomfort, moving toward reinvention, moving away, relocation? I changed countries twice. I moved from Seoul to Sydney. I started a new business. I became a yoga teacher. And the question came with me every time. Because you were changing the external landscape without touching the internal map. The map and the landscape both need updating. I have been trying to solve an identity question with geography for 9 years. Yes, that's a lot of air miles.
Can I say the thing that I haven't said? The thing under all of this? Please, we are not allowed to want more, as women of a certain age especially. We are allowed to want to be useful. We are allowed to want our children to do well. We are allowed to want our relationships to be stable. We are not culturally really allowed to want a big, ambitious, self-focused reinvention. Because that's what men do. Men have midlife crises and everyone treats it as understandable. Women have midlife crises and everyone treats it as a problem to be managed.
My mother said, when I told her I'd quit, she said, Nonjadia, you have children. This is not the time to be
Yes.
finding yourself. That. Exactly that. There's a 2025 international survey of 13,800 workers across 6 countries that found women in midlife are significantly more likely than men to suppress career change.
Intentions because of perceived family obligation, not actual family opposition. Perceived. The constraint is often internal, not external. The constraint is internal. The constraint is internal. I moved to 3 countries and the constraint was always internal. Tool 1. Before you change anything external, spend 30 days asking one question. What matters to me now that did not matter at 28? Not what should matter, what actually does. Values at midlife are significantly different from your values in early adulthood. Most women have never mapped them. Until you know your current map, every destination is a guess. Tool 2. Find one person who is 5 to 10 years ahead of where you want to be, not 5 to 10 years ahead of where you are now. The mentor for reinvention is not someone who has survived the crisis.
It's someone who has completed the transition. There is a difference. You don't need someone to witness your struggle. You need someone to witness your destination. Tool 3. Stop solving the question of who you are with activity. Midlife anxiety feeds on constant activity because activity temporarily suppresses the internal question, but the question grows. Schedule 3. 20-minute periods per week of what I'm going to call structured silence. No input, no output, just presence. The neuroscience of the default mode network shows that your brain builds its most important
Integrative connections during rest. Your reinvention cannot happen in the noise. Tool 4. Pick the smallest possible version of the new thing, not the whole business plan, not the complete career change, the smallest step that is undeniably moving toward the destination. Then do it this week, not this month, this week. The reason? Your brain's confidence system, the dopaminergic run pathway. Every completed small step builds the neural architecture of the new identity. Every unrealized plan reinforces the old one's grip. Small, complete. This week, I want to leave you with a number. A research number that has been sitting in the academic literature for years and has never made it to the general conversation about midlife. Are you ready? 62, on average, across studies, human creativity, originality, and insight reach their zenith. Not because of some abstract spiritual development, because by 62, the pattern recognition, the emotional regulation, the crystallized intelligence, and the freedom from sunk-cost thinking required to make genuinely novel connections. Research from Harvard and MIT confirms transformative thinking, the ability to make entirely new connections and see problems in ways that simply weren't possible at 35, peaks in the mid-60s. The most creative period of most human lives has not yet happened for any of you. That is peer-reviewed neuroscience from institutions including MIT and Harvard. Your most creative years are ahead. The midlife anxiety you are experiencing is real. The disruption is real, the dissolution is real, and it is also, every bit of it, the upgrade installing. You are not falling apart, you are not past your peak, you are not too late. You are running the most sophisticated version of yourselves you have ever run, and the best version, the creative peak, the wisdom peak, the composite human functioning peak, still being built. The fire you feel? That is the installation in progress. You are not broken. You are being rewired.